students, you got to know in the previous lecture why the giant is called selfish. Why Oscar Wilde, the author, had called him selfish giant, and what happened when he barred the children to enter his garden. The the result was the spring didn't come to his garden. The spring came across the country, but it didn't come to the giant's garden. Now we will get to know what is given further in the chapter. The only people who were pleased were the snow and the frost. Spring has forgot this garden. They cried, so we will live here all the year round. The snow covered up the grass with her great white cloak, and the frost painted all the trees silver. Then they invited the north wind to stay with them, and he came. He was wrapped in furs, and he roared all day about the great garden and blew the chimney pots down. This is a delightful spot, he said. We must ask the hell to visit us. So the hell came. Every day for 3 hours he rattled on the roof of the castle till he broke most of the slates, and then he ran round and round the garden as fast as he could go. He was dressed in grey and his breath was like ice. So it says, when spring didn't come to the giant's garden, it was all winter, and that's why it was winter. So there were only two people available who were happy. First was frost and second was snow. बर्फ और पाला वहां पे पड़े हुए थे. यही दो लोग सबसे ज्यादा खुश थे क्योंकि स्नो नहीं, स्प्रिंग सीजन नहीं आया था, वसंत ऋतु नहीं आया था, और फिर जाड़ा ही रह गया था उस गार्डन में, उस बागीचे में. और फिर उन दोनों ने, स्नो एंड फ्रॉस्ट ने, मतलब बर्फ और पाला ने, दोनों ने मिलके ये जोर से कहा कि स्प्रिंग हैज फॉरगॉटन दिस गार्डन, सो वी विल लिव हियर ऑल द ईयर राउंड. And they said happily that spring has forgotten to visit this garden. He didn't come here, and that's why we will stay here all year round. पूरे साल हम ही रहेंगे यहाँ पे. The snow covered up the grass with the great white cloak, and the frost painted all the trees silver. And since it was winter season, so snow covered all the trees, grasses, everything in with his white cloak. एकदम से सफेद चादर बर्फ का बिछ गया वहां पे. And then the frost painted all the trees silver. और फिर पाला की वजह से वो सारे पेड़ एकदम से बर्फ से ढक गए और वो चांदी की तरह सफेद चमकने लगे. Then they invited the north wind to stay with them, and he came. And when they were all set up, they invited his friend, their friend, they invited their friend north wind to stay with them, and he came as well. He was wrapped up in furs, and he roared all day about the garden and blew the chimney pots down. And when north wind came to that garden, he blew everything because it was a stormy wind. ये तूफानी हवा होती है, उत्तरी हवाएं जब भी चलने लगती है जाड़े के दिनों में तो वो बहुत जोर से चलती हैं. And that's why it blew all the many of the pots of chimney. This is a delightful spot, he said. We must ask the hell to visit us. So the hell came. And after doing all this, uh, the north wind said that this place is very delighted place, delightful place. This is a pleasant place to stay here, to stay over. And I think we should also invite our another friend, that is Hel, Ola, to stay with us. And they invited Hel as well, and Hel came. Every day for 3 hours he rattled on the roof of the castle till he broke most of the slats, and then he ran round and round the garden as fast as he could go. And then North Wind started moving round and round in the garden, because there were no place to go. Across the country there was spring season, and just inside the garden there was winter season. And that's why all of these people, like Snow or Frost or Hail or North Wind, they had nowhere to go. वो और कहीं जा नहीं सकते थे, कोई और जगह थी नहीं, क्योंकि पूरे दुनिया में, पूरे देश में वसंत ऋतु आ चुकी थी. And that's why they stayed over there and did whatever they could do. Every day for 3 hours, North Wind used to, run round and round through the garden, and he blew most of the slates off the roof of the castle. He was dressed in grey, and his breath was like ice. And the North Wind was, dressed in grey, because it's dust and dirt and some kind of things. That's why it looks like grey. And since the season is winter season, frost and snow is already there, and that's why वो हवा जो थी वो एकदम, here breathe means the sensation, the feeling of the wind is like ice. वो हवाएं एकदम बर्फ की तरह से ठंडी हवा थी वो. I cannot understand why the spring is so late in coming, said the selfish giant, as he sat at a window and looked out at his cold white garden. I hope there will be a change in the weather. One day, the selfish giant was sitting in his room and was looking across the window, and he was thinking why the spring didn't come to my garden. Why it is getting so late to coming here. I hope there will be a change in the weather. He was thinking that spring is just about to come to my garden, because everywhere outside of my castle and outside of my garden there is spring available, but in my garden still it is winter season, still it is covered by snow and frost, still North Wind is blowing with with its full capacity, with full speed. And that's why he was hoping that one day, sooner or later, the spring will surely come to my garden. But the spring never came, not the summer. The autumn gave golden fruit to every garden, but to the giant's garden she gave none. But giant's hope, giant's dream did not come true, because the spring didn't come. And that's why summer also didn't come. And when everywhere except the garden, giant's garden, everywhere it was summer season, all trees were giving fruits and all. But there was no fruit in Giant's garden. In Giant's garden, the summer season gave none of them. He is too selfish, she said. So it was always winter there, and the north wind, and the hail, and the frost, and the snow danced about through the trees. And the summer season said herself that the giant is very selfish. He has, barred children to enter his place, and that's why spring didn't come, and that's why I will also not go to his garden. Let the winter and north wind and frost and hail and snow be there. They will dance, they will move around in the garden. One morning, the giant was lying awake in bed when he heard some lovely music. It sounded so sweet to his ears that he thought it must be the king's musicians passing by. And one day, when the giant was lying in his bed, he heard a melodious sound. He heard a very sweet music played by some musicians, and he thought it seems king's band of musicians is passing by this road and they are playing this melodious music. It was really only a little linnet singing outside his windows. But it was so long since he had heard a bird singing in his garden that it seemed to him to be the most beautiful music in the world. But actually, it was not the band of musicians. It was a little bird called linnet. It's a singing bird. The bird was actually singing the song, and it seems that a band of musicians is playing the music, because the giant was almost forgot all kinds of melodious sounds, music, and all that. Then the hail stopped dancing over his head, and the north wind ceased roaring, and a delicious perfume came to him through the open casement. I believe the spring has come at last, said the giant, and he jumped out of bed and looked out. And when he came closer to the window, he felt a sweet fragrance. He felt a good scent, a good perfume through the window. And he said to himself, I believe the spring has come at last. Chalo, finally, eventually, the spring has come to my garden. And thinking of spring, he jumped out of bed and looked out. And thinking of the season spring, he jumped out from his bed and looked out. What did he see? He saw a most wonderful sight. Through a little hole in the wall, the children had crept slowly in, and they were sitting in the branches of the trees. In every tree that he could see, there was a little child, and the trees were so glad to have the children back again that they have covered themselves with blossoms and were waving their arms gently above the children's head. And when the giant looked outside through his window, through his room's window, he saw that finally spring has come to his garden. All the trees are, waving its arms. Here, waving its arms means they were, waving its branches, and And why they were waving their arms? Because through a little hole in the wall raised by the giant, the children were crept in द गार्डन. एक छोटे से एक होल में जो बना था कॉर्नर, उससे बच्चे धीरे धीरे सरक के उस जाइंट के उस दैत्य के गार्डन में आ गए थे. और बच्चों के आने की वजह से वो सारे पेड़ पौधे खुशी से झूम रहे थे. And he saw that every tree that he could see, there was a little child. And he saw that each and every tree has a child in it. हर पेड़ पे कोई ना कोई बच्चा चढ़ा हुआ था, खेल रहा था, झूम रहा था. And the trees were so glad to have the children back again that they have covered themselves with blossoms and were waving their arms gently above the children's head. और उन बच्चों को वापस गार्डन में पाके पेड़ पौधे भी खुशी से झूम रहे थे. वो भी अब फूलों से लद गए थे, चारों तरफ फूल ही फूल खिले हुए थे. और वो सारे पेड़ एकदम से खुशी से झूम झूम के बच्चों के सर पे हाथ फेर रहे थे. दे वेर their arms gently above the children's heads. The birds were flying about and twittering with delight, and the flowers were looking up through the green grass and laughing. It was a lovely scene, and only in one corner it was still winter. It was the farthest corner of the garden, and in it was standing a little boy. He was so small that he could not reach up to the tree. And since the children have come to the garden and the spring has also come to the garden, all birds were flying around and they were twittering, they were singing happily in the garden with lots of pleasure. They were delighted, and the flowers were looking up through the green grass and laughing. And finally, since the spring has come, so flowers also were coming up through the green grass, and they were smiling, they were laughing. It was a lovely scene, and it was a very pleasant scene. It was a very lovely scene. But there was still a corner which was farthest corner of the garden. Over there the spring still has not come. Over there still the winter was present, because there was a little kid who was not able to climb on the tree, and that's why the tree was not having a kid, and that's why finally the spring has not come to that part of the garden. Okay, these were some paragraphs, and tomorrow, in the next video, we will complete this chapter and do the question answer as well. Thank you very much.